Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. So since I'm on such a action figure bend right now, I thought we'd do something a little fun for Warhammer Wednesday, and I'm going to show you what it takes to build your army. Like a small taste of what it takes to build an army because of all of the nerd properties that I love, and especially when it comes to like gaming and hobbying and that type of thing. As much as I love Warhammer, and I say that with all sincerity, it is like way up there for me. As great as it is, I have to acknowledge that it probably has one of the most significant barriers to entry for people looking for a new hobby to get into. Let me explain what I mean. So let's actually take something like Magic the Gathering as our first example. I'm going to grab my Warhammer Magic deck that lives on my desk. So we looked at these a few weeks ago, and I have a sneaking suspicion that one of my Christmas or birthday presents, I'm a December baby, is going to be all of the Warhammer decks, because there's 4. But Magic the Gathering, as a hobby and a lore set and all of that, minimal barrier to entry. Figure out which one of the types of games that Magic offers you want to play. Go get you a deck and you can go play. And guess what? If you have cards that were purchased back in the 90s, you can still use them for the most part. Or if you are playing a certain type of deck, you can mix and match within the rules to other cards and stuff that are out there. Magic the Gathering does a really good job of replayability with property that was purchased outside of current continuum. They're always putting out new cards. They're doing new collabs with different properties to make custom decks and custom characters, that type of thing. You saw my Transformers deck. There's this. Waiting on Adventure Time to be an option for Magic. Please, please, please. But it not hard to get into it. Get you a deck, go play. You got a deck that you found in like your parents' old stuff, you can use it for the most part. Now, there might be rules at some Magic the Gathering tournaments, like if you go play with other people, they might have rules of we're only using this color of deck, or it's only playing Commander, this is a Commander deck, meaning there's like a card that's in charge of all the other cards. It's the simplest way I can explain it. Or perhaps they'll say, hey, you can't use a deck that you spent $2,000 to build, because that means that you probably have cards in there that will destroy everyone else's, or vice versa. There are tournaments out there where it's like, if you didn't spend $2,000 on this deck, don't enter because you're going to lose. You don't have cards that are going to be equal to the others. I really appreciate that. Although I don't play Magic the way I did when I was a kid, it's easy to get into. I would put things like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. What are those little tops the kids like? The Beyblades. Yeah, Beyblades are kind of high. You know, they used to be made of metal. Now they're plastic. Sorry, kids. It was, our toys were better. But not hard to get into. And you can basically keep using what you purchased in perpetuity for the most part. Like 90% of the cards I owned as a teenager, I could still use in Magic the Gathering today. Now, what about Warhammer? Warhammer's a little bit different. There's a couple of sides to the whole Warhammer world, the mythos and all of that. So, of course, first there is the lore, the Black Library, you know, the mythology behind the Warhammer universe. And you can probably tell that I am very much on the sci-fi side of Warhammer. I love military sci-fi. It's some of the best writing. I thoroughly enjoy the books. I did not get into Warhammer for the tabletop game. I got into Warhammer. Somebody gave me a book, and I thought it was one of the best things I ever read. And then that's all she wrote. I was way into the novels and the stories long before I ever considered playing the game. So as far as that barrier to entry, easy, books. Go get you some books there at used bookstore. Easy to find. And Black Library does a pretty good job of keeping their actual printed materials at an affordable rate, even with all the inflation and stuff, because they sell enough. You know, they don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to, you know, recoup that money. They are, you know. But then there is, you know, the video game franchises. Warhammer has put out some really good real-time strategy games over the years. I played those a lot growing up. And actually, you know, I think before I got into the tabletop game, I got into the real-time strategy video games. Those were fun. Had a great time with them. Heard that Henry Cavill might be working with Netflix to do a Warhammer show. Like, that would be super cool. Anyway, but then there is the Warhammer tabletop game. That is a whole unique set of circumstances. In order to engage in tabletop war in Warhammer, you are going to need an army. And there are many options for those armies. You can be on the side of the Emperor and the Imperium of Man and play with a legion of Space Marines that are loyal. You can play as Chaos Space Marines. You have the option to play as Xenos species. You could play as Orcs and Grots. You have the option to play as Eldar and Necrons. You can even look inside of the Imperium and play as some of our other human-type armies. You can be Adeptus Sororitas. You can be Sisters of Silence. You can build a Mechanicum army. And the key word there is build. This is the part where it gets interesting. When I say build an army, I literally mean build it. Little bitty pieces, cut them out, put them together, prime them, paint them. Doesn't sound too terrible. Well, let's talk about what makes it not as fun as it could be. So here's my little organizing system while I'm painting things. I'm currently painting to play Aeronautica because my husband and his friends, they really enjoy that, which I never played Aeronautica. It's a map air war game, which that's actually probably the easiest of the Warhammer stuff to get into. Paint some planes, got a map, go after each other. That's super easy. But as you're building your army, you've got to find a way to keep things kind of corralled and organized, because nothing really comes whole and assembled unless you pay for that. We're going to get into it. But first, let's start from the easy end and work our way up, and we'll talk about how you really get into this hobby and the different options you might have depending on like how old you are, what your budget constraints might be, how much work you want to put in. Let's just have a real conversation about it. Aeronautica. So these are flying models that fight in the air, all dog fights, which is super cool. Simple map. It's just a map with a bunch of hexagons on it. Move spaces, roll die, points, boom. They don't make the version of Aeronautica that we play anymore, and getting a copy of the rules is a little bit of a pain. And that brings us to our first pain point of Warhammer. The version that you get introduced to that you might want to play may or may not be in current production. We love Games Workshop. You have to understand, though, that an investment into this type of game is going to probably require you to find people that you want to play with who are all okay with playing with outdated rules or outdated codex or outdated versions of certain models, because, and they have the right to do this, business is business, get your coins, that's how business works. But Games Workshop is notorious for when they come out with something super cool that everybody likes, well, glad you all liked it, glad you bought it, new rules, new models. If you want to play in any official capacity, well, you're going to have to go out and buy all new stuff. Yeah. But these are fun. I'm having fun working on these, and these are probably the simplest models that I have. So here, I'll show you one. They're all primed and in some stage of painting. These are all 3D printed. So we have, these are Necron flyers, and they're very simple, you know, just that white reflection. They're primed in white because I'm using kind of a neon paint scheme with these guys. But this was a simple 3D print. This guy printed in like 2 hours, and then, you know, dry it, all that kind of stuff, prime it, and super easy. The first one that I actually did of these flyers, where is it? Was this guy. Yeah, you can see this one better. I did him in a paint and take night, which local hobby shop, you pay a few bucks, they print out 3D models, you go get them, use their paints. It's just a fun way to socialize. But that was the first time I painted flyers specifically for Aeronautica, and that's how we got interested in it. So my husband started doing like the DACA jets, and I do these. I need to get a couple more painted to play Aeronautica. This is a Necron flyer, and people who play Aeronautica tend to not be super happy when Necrons show up, because these ships are worth way more points than a lot of the others, and they tend to win. Once upon a time, I had a whole Necron army. Where is it? Hell if I know. I've moved several times, and some box somewhere. I also built an Eldar army when I was younger as well. I don't know where it is. So I had to start over. This is one that I'm working on. Kind of into it. Both sides are different colors. You'll notice that when it comes to the planes and stuff, people really get into like their patterns. I like bold colors, so that's why they look this way, and I use bold colors on both sides. There's like a little indentation on the back of them. That's where it will go on the stand. So this is actually the top, and that's the bottom, and yeah, so you can really get in there with the detail and make these unique to what you love and your type of color palette. This is the easiest. Aeronautica is absolutely, in my opinion, one of the easiest versions of the tabletop Warhammer to get into. 5 flying vehicles, paint them up, go find some people to play with. And typically, because the version of Aeronautica that everyone likes the best is kind of old, you know, they tend to be friendlier as far as the game goes, because as you expand the type of army or type of Warhammer game that you want to play, well, cha-ching, it's going to cost more money. And sometimes, depending on the type of tournament that's been set up, you may or may not have a friendly time with those folks. I'm rambling. What do I mean by that? So the other game we play is Kill Team, which that is a 10-on-10 army. So 10 dudes versus 10 dudes. Literally, it's a little kill squad of Space Marines, Grots, whatever you've got there. You put them together and whew, go play. That might be the next easiest to get into, because armies can get really, really big. And when you go to play in places that are not your home or amongst your friends, there are rules to these tournaments. I'm not just talking about the rules of the game itself. Like rules like they have to show up and sometimes have a minimum of 3 colors on your models, or you can't play. Like if you just got into it and you get real excited and you put your models together and they're not painted, there are tournament events where they will not let you play because they are not painted. For a myriad of reasons, but that's the case. And then also, you might buy a set of figures to do for a specific army and have your little book of rules, and by the time you finish putting them together and painting them, because it's not quick to do all of that. If you're an adult with a job or a kid in school and you've got other things to do, unless you have no other things to do, most of us can't build an army relatively quickly. And Games Workshop tends to put out new rules and versions and whatnot so often that 6 months you spent making your army and finally wanting to get out and play, if you want to go play, you know, in sanctioned tournaments and whatnot, you might not be able to because they're using a whole new set of rules. Or that they've decided that this particular type of model you can't use anymore. I'll give you an example. I wish I had it physically, but when I had my Necron army, I actually had a monolith. And it's somewhere, and a monolith is just a big moving pyramid that's worth all the points. Basically, it would dominate on the board. I love it. It's like having a Titan in your army. But that particular monolith I have in a sanctioned event can't actually be used anymore. It's worth too much. It's too powerful. Doesn't fit within the current rules. That's something that I purchased and owned and had as a teenager, if I could find it somewhere, I probably in most tournaments wouldn't be able to use that particular model anymore. And again, that depends on what you're playing. There's a lot of versions of how to play Warhammer. They have a whole bunch of different types of games. One of the ones that we own is just a Space Marine tabletop game where all the figures are pre-made and stuff, and you're basically trying to get away from the Necrons in a little like D&D dungeon setup. It's great. That's an easy way to get into playing as well without having to commit to building an army or learn new sets of rules every 3, 4, 5 months. You know, those are good options. So I appreciate that Games Workshop does that, but they'll put those things out and they'll be out for like 10 minutes and you hear about it and you want to go get it and then it's gone. Like when we got our Space Marine game, there was another one from Games Workshop we were considering. It was at the Target. And when we went back to go get it, it was gone. And then we couldn't find it on the website, nothing. So if there's a drawback, that's one of the big ones, is you have to be ready to figure out how you want to play. Do you want to play amongst family members and your friends where you all, you know, are kind of loose with the official rules and you use the rules that everybody knows? Do you want to go out to your local hobby store with groups of peers? And again, there's a little more flexibility there. Or do you want to get into like real tournaments where the rules are rigid and not flexible? And if you don't show up with all the requirements, then you can't do it. And that can make investing into a hobby like this a little hard if you don't have people to play with. But to be fair, there are people that build the models and paint them that never intend to play. They just enjoy having, you know, the little figures, and that is perfectly fine. So be aware, rules be changing, and depending on who you're playing with, it can get real hard to keep up with. I love Aeronautica because it's so easy to get into. 5 flyers, paint them up, go play. It's great. This I've been working on for a while. This is my kill team, which just for funsies, this is how I organize. I got these on the Amazon. But as I'm building, I like to have a way to keep them organized. And I'll show you why here in just a second. But I'm in the process of completing out. These are 5 that are just primed. These are 5 that I'm in the process of painting. I should be able to finish these, I'm hoping, by the end of this week. But I'm going to pop them open real quick and just give you an idea of my approach to painting. And I'll show you how I got here in just a second with a fresh box of Space Marines. But these are individual pieces that I'm painting, and when I put them together, they will make a whole statue or game piece. These are Chaos Space Marines. You'll notice there's a really good crimson on them. That is Wordbearer Red. So I do tend to paint with the official colors when it comes to my Space Marines, because I'm a lore junkie, so I need the colors. You know, my next armies are going to be Ultramarines and Salamanders because Vulcan lives and Rabute wasn't wrong. So when I do those, you got to go get Ultramarine primer. There's a specific blue for the Ultramarines. There's a specific green for the Salamanders. So if you want them to represent well the armies, you've got to use those Citadel paints to get it to pop and look that way. And in some tournaments, you got to use the right colors or they won't accept your 3 colors that are on these little guys that took you forever to paint. Now, why are they in pieces? So these all come as individual little snips that we're going to look at in just a second. And when I paint, I make decisions on what's easiest to paint and put together. And then I might paint individual pieces and then put it together because then I get a better finished result. I also happen to be one of those people who can freehand straight lines. Everyone can't do that. And if you can't do that, there's a lot of good painting techniques. I'm not a painting technique teacher, don't ask me. But there's a lot of good painting techniques that you can look up to help you figure out how to paint a lot faster. I'm a detail person, so I actually quite enjoy the process of bringing out the detail. So here's one that's looking really good. He's still in pieces. So for this guy, I have done his torso for the most part. Looking really good, got good detail on it. There's more bits to him, so Let me stretch our shoulder here so I can do more than one thing at once. So the reason that I don't have his complete chest cavity together is because this is going to be his chest. But there is a back to it that can be seen when you put it together. And this is where how much detail you love becomes a part of it. When I put him together, you can see this through his legs. So to have that full 3D effect, for me to be able to paint it perfectly, I had to keep this piece separate. And then once I'm done painting this whole model, then I will glue this together. And that will give me a figure that's got a really good 360, no matter what angle you're looking at it from, it's painted well. Some people completely build their figures, then paint them. When I did my Eldar army and I was like 15, that's what I did. I built them all, primed them, and then I painted them. It was fine. But for me, it didn't give me the end result that I wanted. But they all have weapons as well. So this is going to be his minigun. I'm painting it separate because it's going to be close to his body. I won't be able to paint the back of this once I glue it together. So I keep it separate, and it's got his hand, the bits for his hands on there as well, which that's kind of funny. So then once I finish the torso and I finish his shoulder pieces, then this will get mounted on him. So even down to the bits that go on their shoulders. So they've got these huge armor pieces for their shoulders that go on top. Yeah, that's all me, just individual hand detail. Like, homegirl can paint, you know, but it takes me a long time because I'm really, really weird about making sure it looks as good as it can. But I kept that separate because it's going to go on top of a shoulder. And would anyone be able to see it? No, but I'll know if it's done right or not. Like this guy here, he's just legs at the moment. The reason that I left him is just legs is, again, he's got this really interesting weapon that came with the shoulder piece attached to the weapon. So for me to get this painted right and then put it on, I don't want to put this on there and then have like a little bit of just primed plastic under like arm to chest that didn't get painted. I can't abide that. Or this guy right here, this is one of those jet packs, and for Chaos they've all got skulls and horns and stuff on them. But for me to get the right kind of detail on that, I couldn't have attached this to the back of my Space Marine and gotten that same level of detail front and back. So now when I glue this to his back, the color is completely wrapping around the figure. That is my preference. Paint them in the order that you want, but I just want to give you a realistic picture of how long this can really take. I've been working on these in my spare time, literally spare time, because I have a job, you know, and a house to take care of, you know, cleaning and all that kind of stuff. So these, I mean, I've been working on these for, in earnest, about 2 months. So, and that's how far I've gotten. I think I have enough time, because we're getting close to the holidays, to actually finish these out before the end of the year and be able to play Kill Team, finish painting them, put them together. But over here in this box, these guys are just primed. That's it. These are just primed and ready to be put together. And they are in different states of build. The reason I put more of this guy together is, as I examined the pieces, I realized that I could build him adequately and get the detail that I wanted. And plus, his little front piece here, his little apron, came attached to his legs. I would not have put that together if I had an option to not do that, because then I could have got better detail, but it's fine. Or like this guy, his torso is more together than others, but he has no arms yet. So this is as much as I was willing to put together that I knew I could paint well before adding other pieces. But like, he's going to have this really fantastic battle axe, which I love, but for me to get full detail 360 all the way around it, it can't already be attached to him for the way that I paint for that to work. And same thing with this guy. He's almost leftover pieces from the pack. So I was just building and putting together and got a little bit carried away with him. But come on, don't you love the horns on the helmet? He's great. He's going to be a lot of fun to paint. So these are the ones I do next after I finish these. I'll show them to you once I actually get them put together and seen. But how does this start? Because that's a lot of little pieces. Well, guess what? They start in more little pieces. Let's talk about the other barrier to entry. These are expensive. So, depending on the size of... when I say size of army, I mean cumulative points. Every piece of your army is worth points, and you want to assign those points, you know, as you build your army to give you the best edge in the type of battle game that you're going to play. Certain pieces are worth certain points, whether it's vehicles or, you know, your little fighting guys themselves. All of that's worth something. And the type of Warhammer game you want to play will dictate what size point army you need to build or have available to you. Let's just talk turkey here. So this is just a Space Marine Terminator squad. I have actually had this box for probably 3 years and not opened it. No, I've had this for like 5 years. I've had this for a while. No, God, no. When did I buy this? This box may be 8 years old, and I never opened it because life got busy. I just didn't have time. I didn't get to do Warhammer for a while because I was traveling for work. It just wasn't something I had the physical time to do. So I've had these guys for a while, and most because they're generic any old Space Marines, I can probably use them in any army. You know, so it was a safe purchase. Just basic generic Space Marines. These were destined at the time to be Ultramarines, and then life got busy. I started traveling, didn't get to use them. But hear that? That's the sound of pieces. And then these guys, these are Chaos Space Marines. Again, I think I bought them around the same time I got this guy. I never got to use them, but now that I'm back into Warhammer and I've got time for my hobbies, these will eventually get built. There's a 30K box that I asked for Christmas. But enough pieces to build 2 pretty significant armies. So those will actually be my very next project after I'm done with Kill Team. But those will be my Ultramarines and Salamanders. I'm super excited about it. But how much were these? Now, keep in mind, I bought these like 7-8 years ago on sale. This box was $50 before it went on sale. That will probably yield me, what, 5 or 6 Marines. And this is a Terminator squad. And then these guys were $45 for a Chaos Terminator squad. So this is $100 worth of plastic right here that still has to be cut out, put together, and painted. And your ability to do that is all going to depend on budget and time. I didn't have time for years. I played a lot as a teenager. And, you know, I had a teenager job, so that's how I paid for it. You know, I went and worked at Annie Ann's Pretzels to fund my nerd habits. You know, when I was 16, that's what you do. You know, you don't have bills when you're 16. You buy stuff you want. And then when you get older, you know, you don't always have time or people to play with. Like where I used to live, there wasn't a huge community for this. There was one Games Workshop official store in our city. And then there was one store that I knew of that was a Games Workshop reseller, but that person sold just in general all the game stuff. And they had like the one place you could go play tabletop games. So like one night of the week it was Magic, one night it was Battletech, one night it was Warhammer. It was like the only place in town. So there's just more options. And then when I got older and I had new friends and no one to play with, it's not as interesting when you don't have other people to enjoy the hobby with. But, you know, now I live in a nerd family and we all make time for our nerdy hobbies. So it's a little bit encouraging. But this is $100 of plastic right here. If it wasn't on sale. That particular shop would always have an end of year sale. and different colored tags would get, a certain percent off. So I ended up picking these up, if memory serves me, for about $60 together, which in Warhammer prices, that's a steal. But it's an expensive hobby. It just is. That's before the price of paint. And the cool thing is Citadel, which is the paint brand recommended for Games Workshop. Citadel, there's other really great paint brands out there, like Pro Paints are really good too. There's a few others that we love to use. But they're really good about putting out boxes that have enough varied colors that you can get started and still play the whole game. I appreciate them for that. Like good on you. But depending on the volume a particular store that you're ordering from is doing, that will impact their ability to offer discounts or anything like that. Like there's stores in our town that do offer discounts. There are some that do not. They don't do enough volume to be able to get a discount from the manufacturer in order to pass that on to the players. So they're all in competition. I mean, I'm lucky I live in a nerd city, so there's like 15 places where I can go buy the stuff I want. I never really have to order online. If there's something I do need to order, they're all fighting with each other over the best price to, do custom orders. So that's kind of handy. Everyone doesn't have that. So all you can do is your best. But then once you get them, you have to, you got to put them together. So your little box of Citadel paints will come with one of these. Your schnips, because you're going to need them. Let's open this and see what you're working with. Like, I guess technically this is an unboxing because I have not opened this. I've had it for years, never opened it. So, thank you, YouTube, for giving me motivation to open this. Ah, new plastic smell. Got enough new plastic. It's weird. I'm having to wait to do all my filming until the sun goes down because my office faces what direction? So my office faces south. So like sun comes up on that side and sets on that side. And at this time of year, from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., the sun is somewhere in my window as it goes across the sky in front of me, and it just makes lighting terrible. But the second the sun goes down, and which is basically when I'm done working, lighting is perfect. It makes it hard to record on the weekends because, I would love to do it during the day before I go off and have fun, but the lighting's weird. But at night, well, not night. It's not while I'm recording this. It's not nighttime. It's just after work hours. Lighting's perfect, so let's open it. How do you actually put this together? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Are you ready for it? Here's what you get. Here's what you get. You get panels. And this is a panel of legs and waist. Got some shoulder pieces in here as well. And oh, what else do you get? Oh, here's some weapons. Yep, some hands, different glove options. Oh wait, there's more. You got your chest pieces here. And then you got accessories. And of course, for those of y'all who feel like fiddling with them, I'm not the one, not today. Stickers. Wow, reflection is real. How do you know what to put together? Wow, wouldn't it be great if they just, organize these where all the pieces you needed were on, one of these little... No, that's not how this works. So you get my favorite thing, a little instruction manual. And depending on the complexity of what you've selected and how many figures that your little panels will yield, is how thick this will be. My Kill Team box, which will give you 10 figures, and if you're clever, maybe 11 or 12, it comes with quite a thick little booklet with options of how to put everything together. This box of Terminators is more simple than some of the sets that are out there, which I appreciate. There's still more in here. There's stands that they go on. But this is a simpler set to put together. So when you open these instructions, let me open them correctly. And hopefully the reflecting of the light won't be too bad. So it'll give you a list, of course, of what is in there. These are all the panels that they gave you and all the pieces. And then what you're going to need, you're going to need a way to snip them. You're going to need some glue to put them together. You're going to need to prime them. And there is certain types of glue that works better than others on this type of plastic. If you're new to this, when you go to the hobby store, just ask them for what they recommend. I know everyone in the comments is going to be like, no, use this, use this. Great. To recommend to people stuff to use. But again, availability being what it is, depending on where you are, different stuff might be open to you. So what it's telling me here is all the pieces I need to make this Terminator and a variation of that Terminator. Now, this particular set doesn't have a ton of options, which is fine. I'm going to get I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of legs on here. So all I can do is build 5 Marines. And out of those sets of legs, I will then have to pick their torsos. And when I pick their torsos, I will then need to pick their guns. I do have more options on their weaponry. There's several weapons they're allowed to use to customize my army for what I want. I can mix and match what kind of weapons they have, and even their heads. Now, this one doesn't come with a whole bunch of extra heads. There are exactly 5 heads here. When I was building my kill team, there's like 20 heads it came with. So I could have them with a helm, no helm, horns, no horns, or like bare face with horns, like just tons of options. So that's how with some of these boxes you can end up with 1 or 2 extra figures sometimes, depending on how you choose to build. But as you open the instructions, these are going to become wider and more complex depending on the variability that you want to build. Because on the back of the box, it will show you the different variations that are available. This is just a squad of Terminators. So there are basically 5 figures I can build. In the kill team, it has 10 dudes back here and shows you these are the 10 ways you can put them together to get different types of points based on their weapons assigned to this figure. These actually aren't going to be that bad to put together. Kill team, wearing me out. And these are actually, because they're Terminators, they are... 1 second. Look at the size difference. So these are legs for a Terminator. These are my little legs for kill team. These are a little bit bigger. That doesn't seem like a big deal. But good God, look how small it is. Look how small it is. Oh God. Like the teeniest brushes, the smallest amounts of paint to get that done. And something you're going to need. Where is it? I know it's down here somewhere. I would highly recommend getting a magnifying glass. Now, in our room where we actually paint, I have one of those fancy, like, huge, like, built-in LED light, 1,000,000 times magnifying, adjustable light. Like, we have 2 of those. This is the one I take with me when I go to the hobby store, because they'll usually let me borrow a light, and this will fit in my painting backpack to have a magnifier if I need it. But you're going to need a magnifying glass. Do you have... Oh, the little light's on. Click. Do you have perfect vision? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The stuff is so small. Like, let me show you how small this can really get. Let's see here. Dig, dig, dig. Diggity, dig, dig. I have a little... I think I have a dude's head that I have not stuck on the dude yet. Yeah, I do. Where is it? Or I thought I did. Where's his head? Well, now I'm over here realizing I got pieces missing. Where's dude's head? Which is fine. Never throw your box out until you're done building, because you're going to realize you missed something. Oh, I just put him in the wrong section. But look at that. Oh my God, it's so tiny. And this is when you can start employing wash techniques and stuff. But again, I happen to be one of those people that has a very steady hand, and I can individually, yeah, I'm pulling back so you can see how tiny this is. I can individually paint the eyes on this. And give him pupils. Like, I can paint in that detail. Most people can't do that. If they can, they're probably professional painters. More than likely. This is actually the head for the piece that I was looking for. So I'm going to put him in his right slot now. These guys, their heads are a little bit bigger. They're not as T9C. So that's going to be easier to paint than my kill team heads. It's a lot of pieces. And if you are not an organized person, I highly recommend finding a way to be organized, especially as you paint. Very easy to lose pieces. Go slow. Go slow, read the directions once, read them again, and then read them one more time. And then follow that grid that they give you to show you how to build your figure. Follow it step by step and cut them out individually. And before you glue them together, I always do this, especially when you start getting those bigger boxes like Kill Team or those big $200-300 boxes that give you multiple armies you can build at once. Fit them together without gluing them to see if you like the way it's going to turn out. Because with these guys, I actually had like a bunch of torso options. They don't all have the same torso. They're not uniform, so to speak. So I would fit them together and then decide, okay, now after I've tried on 3 torsos, yep, that's how I want this guy to look. Then I committed to gluing. And even then, I'm still not 100% committed to gluing them together, because as I go through the process of building them, I might see that, oh, that shoulder piece will actually look better with that figure. That's another reason I don't 100% glue them together in the beginning, because minds change. So, but everyone's not me. You do what makes you happy. Now, there are places who will make armies, build them. Like, that's all they do. Our 2 favorite shops in town both have dedicated space where they have people who do nothing but build and paint commissioned armies. They do all the cutting out, they do all the painting, and they ship it to you. Or you come in this town, you come pick it up. That's not cheap. Because I know how long it's taking me to paint. I can't imagine doing this for a living. Like one of the local shops, they call their studio the Stiff Neck Studio, because you were doing this for 8 hours a day or more. And if somebody orders, an army that's 100 pieces, little dudes and titans and it's a whole thing. That's not cheap, because you're not just paying for a finished product, you are paying for the hours of time of that artist. They do very good work to order a commissioned army. Like all of the people that I've seen, this is a very competitive nerd town. So if you're going to have a shop where you paint armies, like you have to be good here. They do very good work, but you pay for individual artist attention. You're going to have the best looking army at the tournament. You're going to have the best looking army in your display case. It will not be free. So you have to weigh time as well. Because some people, it's kind of a relationship building activity as well. Parents building their armies with children. Like one of the guys that we go to church with, he's a older gentleman. He's retired now. He's getting his grandsons into it. So that's what they do together, is they build and paint their armies. It's part of their, bonding time. And some people ain't got that kind of time. Like they want to play, but they don't want to spend all day cutting and painting. So you got to weigh your options. And I would love to just throw out a price of how much a pre-painted army costs. It depends. The least I've seen one for that was used and like basically pawned into a store, like $250. But it was really well painted and it was a really good army. I've one of the commissions at a shop that we love is working on. It's like a $1,500 commission. And it's only like 10 pieces. So it just depends. It depends. It depends on what the market will bear. I know that sounds really expensive, but that's how economics works. If someone will pay it. Now, I hope I didn't scare you away from the hobby of Warhammer, but when it comes to these type of hobbies, I think sometimes that those of us who are fans do people a disservice to not help them understand, like, that it's a little bit of work to get into it, but it's work that I love. I am obviously a person who likes things that are fiddly and detailed. I'm into it. When I started reading the books, I didn't know there was a fiddly detailed universe that came with it. And if military sci-fi is not your thing, Warhammer has a whole fantasy side as well. It's like Lord of the Rings in space. There's elves and everything else, which Eldar are basically space elves, but whatever. So they've got a lot of accessibility in terms of IP that's appealing. But again, the ever-changing rules, the ever-changing regulations, time and price, those can be barriers. But I will say this. If it's something you want to do, you'll find people around who want to do the hobby with you. That's where apps like Meetup become really good, because you can get on Meetup. It's not just for it's not a dating app. It's like a people do stuff app. And the way I got back into playing in my old city was I joined a meetup group that met to play Warhammer, and it was a friendly game. It wasn't like sanctioned tournaments or anything. It was like, hey, what pieces and parts do you have? Let's all get together and enjoy this hobby. So there's a lot of ways that you can still engage in enjoying the hobby without breaking the bank. And amongst our friend group, if you're in the middle of building your army, you can bring your unpainted figures. We're fine with that. Now, if a game shop is putting out a tournament, they might not let you do that. But that's why friends are important. And that's why you need to follow my tips on how to win friends and influence people as a nerd. Okay? Because don't be that guy. Look at me. If you're having a friendly game and they show up with 2 colors and not 3, let them play. Just let them play, okay? It's not gonna hurt anything. There's no prize money. We're not out here trying to get ranked or anything. Just let them play. Like, oh, that looks more like Sanguinius Crimson than it is Wordbearer's Red. Don't be that guy, all right? People want to show up, have fun. Let people show up and have fun, okay? So I'll probably do a reading next week. I just wanted to, because I'm in build mode, because when I'm done with this and I upload it, I'm going to go sit in our painting room. We are such dorks. We just have a place to paint. I'm going to sit in the painting room and paint. And my goal is to finish these in the next couple of days so then I can do the other 5. So we can play Kill Team amongst. And then I have to work on my other army. Sounds like a lot. But that's what hobbies are. They're a lot. I mean, some of you out there got a boat you've been building for 15 years. In the garage. You know, like some of you got a car out in the driveway that you're going to get running. But that's okay. If it makes you happy, not hurting anybody, enjoy your hobby. But I just want to give you a realistic picture of what you're in for if you choose to get into the tabletop game side of Warhammer. It's a whole thing. As usual, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.